All right, there it is. That wonderful live red button. Welcome to On the Cusp, episode 6, where we will be going full kung fu on leadership and accountability. My two very, very favorite themes, and there's a lot of reasons why, because I think on a personal and professional level, nothing great can happen without strong leadership and strong accountability, and as well as learning to lead ourselves and what that means. So we're still waiting for a couple of other guests to join us. I'm sure they'll pop on soon, and we'll just continue the conversation. So what On the Cusp really is always trying to achieve is real talk with real people about real life, and really there's nothing off the table. I've had people say, hey, you sometimes there's a swear word in there, and I go, yeah. I said, we're not going to have a cuss fest On the Cusp, but every once in a while, the most proper punctuation is maybe a mother, father here or a mother, father there when used appropriately. So again, always exploring the human condition and just trying not to make a straight line crooked, acquiring new tools and fuel, and just being able to learn from other people, and trying to apply some of these things to our daily life. So when it comes to leadership, in my mind, what comes up is people who have made a significant difference in the lives of either a person, a group, or even a country. I'll get into somebody that I find very inspiring, Nelson Mandela. So I'll share a little bit more about that to give some context to the show, and it'll be a banter with everybody else who may have some significant role models in their life and why. And some of these people are considered heroes. And the definition of a hero is, someone who's willing to completely forfeit everything of themselves for the greater good, or a principle or principles, or even die for that principle, right? So I consider Nelson Mandela a hero. Here's a guy who spent a total of 28, almost 28 years in prison, and a bulk of that was at Robben Island. And I listened to a great audiobook last year where I actually got to learn more about this significant man. It's called Bargaining with the Devil. It's a negotiations book, but the author used Mandela as an example because he had to be a master negotiator to be able to influence and to lead people, nudge the river in a direction of, getting rid of apartheid and that whole story. So he's a man that I find extremely fascinating, and has the DNA of what, I would hope to be able to bring into my roles in leadership. So that being said, and then there's the accountability piece that we'll talk about too, we'll throw around, which is a dirty word, right? For most people, they consider it a dirty word because they're afraid to deal with accountability. Not only accountability to yourself, maybe when you kind of screw up, and do you own it from the front and say, my bad, and then do everything you can to make it right? Or do you basically hide, and so hopefully nobody notices and you can just go on going on, with the same MO, and or holding somebody else accountable to as well. So I'm just going to kind of finish with this stat, and then we'll just open it up to leadership and what it means to you guys. Is 70% of leaders. Okay, so I'm always going to use the word leaders because they're supervisors, managers, whatever. If you're in a role where you are responsible for directing the work of another person, you are considered a leader. So 70% of leaders do not talk to their people. And I learned that years ago, and I find that fascinating. And after, digging deeper into that, it's because they don't possess the emotional intelligence to deal with having some harder conversations around accountability, which is not setting proper expectations. If somebody's not following through, they just, hopefully it fixes itself. Because, guys, when everything's great, right? But when it's not going great, how do you have those conversations? So there it all is in a bit of a nutshell, what we were going to look at today and discuss and banter with. So leadership. So I'll start with you, Sylvain. And what does leadership mean to you, and what roles did it play in your life, and where did you find yourself being a leader in certain circumstances?
Yeah, well, I think leadership for me, it just means like you kind of mentioned there is a person that can lead a group or another person, say, and teach them at the same time, and not just bark orders, right? You can just kind of get the job done in a civilized manner, And so a great leader will do that. And like you said, communication is key, and that I don't know if you're born with it or if you have to learn it, but for me that was a big. I had difficulty with communication. Like you said, you tend to just push through it, and it'll happen. If it doesn't happen, then I will do it. I will make it happen. So then you tend to take on everybody else's work. So that communication was key, and it was, I think it for me it was a big learning factor, and still working on it today. So it's communication is key to leadership for sure.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. That is probably, I think, the cog in the wheel for anything to have harmony or go in the right direction is the communication, right? So here we go. I'm just going to add, we have O'Brien. There he is. Okay, so he's jumping in. And good to see you, brother. So just we highlighted the show, what we're talking about. You already know we chatted yesterday with you and Roger, and we're still waiting on Roger, but hope everything is well with him. So yes, communication, absolutely. So Marco, how about yourself? Where does leadership fare in your life? What does it mean to you? And
yeah, I mean, I've for a long time, I've always sort of been the the next in line to the leader, and following, or at least being present with some very bad leaders and some very good leaders, some people who were inspirational in the way that they took on the role. I mean, what does leadership mean to me? Sylvain touched on it, that you have to be a good communicator. You've got to know, you've got to know how to, how to be that role model to have people follow and aspire to, right? And learn from. So you've got to be a teacher, you've got to be a role model, all of that. And taking on the extra responsibility when other people are lacking. So those are things that are a challenge for leadership. For me myself, when I've been in a leadership role, my main thing that I learned from my experiences was empowering the people that I'm leading. Right. Quite honestly, I don't think any one person can be a great leader. You spoke on their own. Okay. You can't be a leader from a pedestal. You brought up Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, as a single voice, was a single voice. His ability to inspire the masses of people around him to forge the change. It took 25, 35, 40 years. But as a leader, he inspired the people around him to live up to something better, to expect something better, to strive for something better, to strive for what was right. And that one voice became millions, and the millions of voices are what affected change eventually. So, I mean, for me, I look at leadership as being a person who inspires the voices of the people under them to be the conduit to something better, to be the conduit to a powerful team, to be the conduit, and never taking. This was another thing that I learned. Don't ever take credit for the work that the people who work for you do. Be humble and selfless enough to understand, I look good because they make me look good.
I absolutely love everything you just said. Yeah, and for me, what the bell that you ring in my head is around the inspiring is influencing. That's the word that comes to mind for me. A leader influences, and what does that influence look like? You're influencing a person or a group of people towards something that is good for the whole. The leaders are not about their agenda. It's not about their agenda. That it is completely forfeited and pushed to the side, and they're constantly going to work on how do I lead from the front and not push from the back, right? So those ingredients, especially being a role model, do you walk your talk, right? There's a lot of times what you say and what you do are in conflict with leaders, right? I've had bosses say one thing and then be doing a completely other thing. And then you're like, well, wait a second. We'll talk about, sorry, Marco, but we'll talk about standards too on the show too, the standards we have for ourselves and the standards we expect of others. So anyway, sorry, Marco, and then we'll go to OB here in a second.
So, I mean, you make an interesting comparison. That's the difference, in my mind, the difference between a leader and a boss. A boss will push you. A boss will always push you, and a boss will make it about them all the time. A leader will carry you, and make it about the whole, right? So I just wanted to throw that one in there.
No, awesome, beautiful, love it. Well, Brian, how about you, my friend?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Leadership.
Thanks for your patience. I'm sorry, but things got a little bit nuts on my end, but I'm glad to be here.
All good, man. So how about yourself? What's your take on leadership? What does it mean to you? And even some examples. We'll get into some good and the bad and the ugly too. So, we need examples.
Okay. Well, yeah, like leadership, like what Marco was saying, you know what I mean? It's about your team, right? At least my personal view, it's about your team. And I think one of the best leaders out there, Marco touched on it also, they inspire their people to do their best. And I think a subsection to that is for having a good leader is having the ability to go to your team, right? Know them, know your teammates, right? The people that are with you, know their strengths, know their weaknesses, have it be on the table, not to say like, in most, I guess you could say corporate world or whatever, people don't want to show their weaknesses. So it's like, yeah, I'm stellar here and I'm stellar here, but people don't want to know, okay, well, but I'm weak at this. So let me just hide that. So people just see how like a rock star I am with this. But I think the good trait of a really good leader is to be able to sit down, have an open conversation with your team, know each individually, like Marco, how was things at home? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Like outside of the actual objective of the team and the organization's vision. So that way you can actually get to know them, get to know their strengths and weaknesses, help them become better, not just with their strengths, but also with their weaknesses, and inspire them to sort of like grow as a whole. Not just, well, I need him to do this for me, and I need that person to do that for me. So when I combine the information, then I can provide that to like my decision makers or the leaders. And then it's like, okay, I've just given them what the people above me have requested of me. Mm-hmm. At that point, you're just answering. You're getting a question, you're answering. The team is not growing. The team is not solidifying. As a leader, you're not inspiring them to do the best for themselves, which in turn will be the best for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my take. A little take on diving a little bit deeper. I think for leadership, for me, is to know the individual, know their strengths and weaknesses, have an open dialogue where they can come and talk to you about their strengths, their weaknesses, right? Even their personal stuff, saying, listen, I'm having a bad day at home. This is going on. My daughter's sick or whatever. So I'm just not totally into it today. You know what? No problem. It's like, what do you need? Not what do I need you to fulfill for me today? Yeah. Duties is like, what do you need as a person? Do you need time off? Do you want to go? You know what I mean? Do you need some time? Go take time. Let me know how much you need. And then, just get back to me. But, get out of here. Go home. You know what I mean? So,
100%. So like yeah, no, and it's great. We're just continuing layering here. And that's what I love about this topic. There's a lot to be said. For me, I find succession an important thing in a strong leader is being able to, give the wheel to other people and let them be leaders as well. And not you I need to have full control of everything, full control of, of all the information, because somebody might be gunning for my job. Okay, I'm adding Roger here. Roger's there. There you go. Good stuff.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
So So for me, strong leaders will put the necessary tools and development in front of people so that they can grow and potentially slip into my job, right? That for me is being a humble leader. I will give you an example of a good leader. And the first strong example I had, I was working in a warehouse in a previous lifetime. Again, I keep things generic just so that, people are like, yeah, I know who you're talking about. But, I got to fight the devil on my tongue. So I was working in a warehouse as a full-time employee, and we had our team. Every morning we start together and get going with our shift. We realized that we'll call her Martha. Martha wasn't present to start the shift, and the supervisor was there. And we asked, "Hey, where's Martha?" And the supervisor said, "Well, she's going to be missing a couple of days. Her pet Budgie died." So, being 19 years old. Realizing that I got a lot to learn, I snickered, and then of course it went down the line of people, and everybody started to chuckle and laugh. This
audio device connected.
So I don't know what that sound was, but this woman was brilliant, and she said, "Okay, who here owns a dog?" And I went. Most of our hands went up, and I started to shrink and become very small because I knew she was going with this message. And she says, "Who here have lost a dog in the past?" All of our hands were still up. And it didn't take much for me to realize the lesson that she was teaching me, because I couldn't speak for everybody else. And she went on to say, her Budgie is her dog. And we are not here to judge and minimize how Martha should or shouldn't feel about her pet bird. So needless to say, the rest of the day, I felt like an absolute horrible human being. I really had to check in with myself and say, man, stuff. But here's the other side of it, the ugly. If she wasn't such a class act and willing to take a moment to do some teaching there, he could have laughed and went, "Yeah, Budgie, I know, like, what's the big deal? You need a couple of days off." It could have been that side of it. So there's one example for me early on that stuck with me forever, right? And we'll talk about sympathy and empathy too. A couple of things that I want to throw out there and what we need as far as leadership. So, Roger, glad you made it. It's okay because you're on the cusp. You just roll with it, right? So we're going around the table here talking about leadership and what it means to each individual and how it plays in your life. So we'd love to hear as well. We're getting a bit of an echo happening as well. I don't know if that's someone.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I had technical difficulties as well. Called my damn laptop wasn't charged up. So anyhow.
Hey, listen, my greatest worry the day before a show, gentlemen, is that I get into my computer and Wi-Fi's down or something, but this is life, guys. This is what this is about. Whatever, man. We're here, we're all together, and that's a beautiful thing. So, Roger, I'd love to hear from you on what leadership means to you and what it plays in your life.
Well, as far as leadership goes, for me, I keep on thinking about my personal experiences and the leaders I've come across that other than me. I always fall into a place where I don't look to be the leader, but somehow or another, I'm like the chosen one, or someone picks me, kind of thing, So I wind up taking the helm when I need to. I don't do it by choice, really, but it's funny though, because a lot of the things that I've been involved in with leadership have come because someone has come looking for me. And so that's kind of like the story of my life in a way, as far as leadership goes, But the one thing that I do find is that, and we were kind of talking just a little bit about this yesterday, about, running across people that just are not good people, man. They don't, first of all, they're not good people. Okay. And then these people that are not good people are also leaders. Okay, and it goes anywhere from the lower rung of the ladder on up to, our politicians. So, like I said, if you're going to be a leader, to me, it's a big job. You're going to be condemned or you're going to be appraised most of the time. There's really hardly any in between. And if there is an in between, those leaders usually don't get talked about much. If you've noticed that, the ones that get talked about a lot are the ones that are condemned or they're praised, and so that's the interesting thing about leadership, for me anyways, though. But other than that, though, I think my leadership style is like by example. Lead by example. I'm not that guy that goes out there, hey, look, I'm going to go ahead and take the lead here and show everybody how it's done. Now, if someone comes to me and asks me, hey, look, I need some advice or something like that, then okay, then I don't mind being that kind of a leader, But other than that, like I said, leadership, I have a hard time leading myself, man. Here at home, my wife's the leader, man. That's the leader right there.
Well, Roger, thanks for teeing that up, because we're going to go around the table again. Like you said, and I like that you went there. Yes, leadership, they're big shoes to fill. I've always said, if you're going to pick up that staff and you're going to pay attention for it, and you want to on your business, build those shoes, man. Because I know too many leaders who pick up the staff, they abandon their post.
Yep.
They abandon their post.
Yep.
Man, as a leader. So, leading. I don't know where the exit from here, guys.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Tell you what. Let me try. Hold on. Let me try that.
Yeah. Okay.
Any better?
I think
Yeah.
good stuff.
There we go.
So Roger teed it up. Learning to lead.
You're sounding like Robocop.
That's fantastic.
Hey, hold on. I'm getting some crazy feedback over here right now. So you guys keep on talking. If I'm not laughing while you guys are laughing, it's because something's going on over here.
I believe Roger is all Roger. He's bringing stuff to the party. That's supposed to be here.
You try earbuds too. So learning to lead ourselves. Okay, Sly. How good would you say you were out of the gates early on in leading yourself? And what kinds of things did you do to improve that along the way?
Coming out of the gate, I mean, kind of like Roger said, I was thrown into that role because I started growing my own company, and couldn't keep up with the work demand, and so I started hiring people, and I was, like I mentioned in the last podcast, great technician, not so much a great leader or a great manager, and so it was at the beginning it was very difficult, and because I'm very analytical and a type A personality,
man, I admire that shit.
Hold on, let's try something. Can you mute your mic, Roger?
Yeah, hold on. Yes.
Because we may have to do that, because even in Zoom calls, it's the kind of thing that does happen. So maybe if we're not the one talking, we'll just mute our mic and then you can just jump in. So go ahead, keep going, Sly. It was good. I like where you were going there.
Yeah. So at the beginning it was very difficult, and I had just come out of the Army, so I was used to leadership by barking. Do as you're told. And it was, and also growing up, I was the master of my own domain, doing what I had to do kind of thing. So I was used to having my way, and my work ethic is work until it's done. So I had to, you mentioned earlier about empathy and whatnot. I had none. Right. So it was very difficult if somebody said, here's a quick story. I'm installing a guy's furnace and his air conditioner. I'm out on his front lawn because I've got the flu. I'm puking. I go in his bathroom, do number 2, and then go downstairs and keep working on the furnace. And then the guys, one of the workers is like, well, it's almost 4 o'clock. Are we going to finish up and come back tomorrow? And I'm like, tomorrow we've got more work. So no, we're going to finish this even if it takes till midnight. And so it was, and lead by example. Well, I mean, I was ready to work all the time. So, but I didn't realize that's not everybody. So it took a lot of different personalities, me meeting a lot of different people, reading books, listening to videos, or even back then cassettes, and so learning little bit by little bit, and yeah, so for me, that's how it was. And I think I got better over the time. Most employees I had stayed with me until either, we had to let them go, or we had sold a company or whatnot. And so, but it was always a learning experience for me coming out of the gates, running like a racehorse kind of thing. So
I really like what you said there, Sly, because some of the workshops that I do, we talk about standards, right? And oftentimes we just expect people to do it like we do it. And a lot of leaders have that expectation of other people who may not be at the same level, right? And leaders will get frustrated, but it's like, well, there's a gap there. And as a leader, you got to fill that gap. That's your job. A person doesn't know what they don't know. And especially if you haven't set clear expectations for people, and then somehow by osmosis, they're going to know what you want from them and what you think as far as that goes. So, we often say that, I'd love to be able to clone a team of me. Now, just aspects of me would be fine, Marco. Just aspects of that, as far as getting the job done, because you touched on that, right? Not everybody is willing to work a 10-hour day, or do we have the right to expect that of other people? Do we? Right? So those are all the what I call the emotional intelligence around things, is realizing that everybody's different. And O'Brien spoke to that, about looking at people's weaknesses and their strengths, play to people's strengths, and then fill the gap and help them, come up and by learning. We're going to talk about books in a minute. So that was really great example there. So about yourself, Mr. Renna, learning to lead yourself, like.
Well, I mean, learning to lead myself, it's I've been an entrepreneur, and I mean, going back to what Roger said about his wife being the leader in the house. My wife is, I won't say she's the leader in the house. She'd be really offended if I propped her up to be the boss in the house. But she's an example that I use in my own life, as somebody who is truly a great leader. She worked in an industry that the leadership was always top down, right? So the middle managers kissed up to the upper managers kissed up to the executives kissed up to the board, right? Where she was she was a leader amongst her team. She was a mentor. She was the kind of person that propped everybody up around. So I took a lot of cues from her in developing a good leadership style. And I mean, I work in the film industry. Like, you walk onto a set with 200 people, and you've got 25 people that are all leaders. You've got the director of photography, and then you've got the executives that come in, that are the producers, the people who are the money people, the people who are the logistics people, and they all have their own little creative input, and yada yada yada. In the meantime, it all the shit all slides downhill. Once you get to the people that I work with, well, everything's your fault, right? And so, as the leader, you're basically the umbrella for the team. At the same time, you're working in extraordinarily difficult circumstances, and anybody who has not worked on a film set probably wouldn't understand, but it's 15, 17, 18-hour days, 5-6 days a week. You could be out in the most remote area of BC or the Yukon or whatever, and literally what you carry in a 20-liter backpack is what you've got for that day. And you will run into people who, I mean, I've worked with broken bones. I've worked with concussions. I've worked with, a heat stroke. I've worked with all of this stuff. But then at the end of the day, the people who are under me are also going through that. And as shitty a mood as I might be in, the people that are around me are probably suffering worse. So it's my job to understand, like, I guess best example, I worked with a guy on a show over the summer, and he walked onto the film set, and he looked at me, and he was just, "Get out of here." And I was like, "What do you mean, get out of here?" He said, "Dude, you got here an hour and a half before everybody. You haven't taken a break. You've sent everybody else off for their lunch. You've had your lunch delivered to you. You're eating it out of a box while you walk around. Go away. Go sit down. Go take a walk. I don't care what you have to do. He said, but there's a point where we're going to need you, and we need you in one piece. So go.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I'm like, okay, you know what? I've arrived as the kind of person, the kind of leader I want to be. When my team behind me cares just as much for me as I do for them. And now I know that we've all got each other's backs. And then I was like, okay, I'm all right. I can go take a break because I know that these guys are all going to watch out for each other now. So I'm cool. I can go take 15 minutes and just go sit down in the bush.
Yeah, and that's another great aspect of leadership. There's a few things that come out of what you just said. Is the amount of pressure we put on ourselves as leaders, right? We put an enormous amount of pressure on ourselves to deliver and perform and to care and to pick up. And at least when we're talking about quality leadership, right? It's easy to just put the inverse in there for leaders who do abandon their post. Right now, we're talking about quality leadership and those environments of trust that we seek to create, and that takes a lot of work. Quality takes time. And consideration. There's an enormous amount of sympathy and empathy, and some people, struggle with the distinction between sympathy and empathy, right? Because I've asked that question a lot in some of my workshops, and empathy comes from the Greek to suffer with, and strong and caring leaders will have a component in them that is driven by empathy and being able to put themselves in the other person's shoes if they've been through that experience. So what you just said is integral to, and I like that we bring up, people in our lives immediate, like your wife. There we can find all kinds of great examples of, leaders that we want to model ourselves by. So I'm going to go to O'Brien, and we're going to come to you, Roger. So learning to lead yourself, right? Because the idea here we're trying to throw around is we have to master that. We have to be masterful in leading ourselves before we can ever dream of doing a bang up job of leading even one person, yet a group. So where in your life did you find that learning to lead yourself was something of a project that you knew was significant for you in your life and in every day?
Wow. Good question. Good question. Well, I would probably have to say as just being a father. I have two kids. My daughter's 15, my son's 11, going to be 12 in January. And, just for me, it's like, being a dad, and it's just me and the kids are with me, you know what I mean? I'm divorced, and so they're, we're here just the three of us, but I say we're the three amigos, and we got to work together to get stuff done, that type of thing. But I think for me, it's just a simple matter of, I pride myself on being self-aware in regards to my positive side, my negative side, you know what I mean? Some people, in regards to parenting anyway, some people, they just, it's almost like a do as I say and not as I do, that type of thing. So for me, I don't, that doesn't float well with me at all. So knowing to be a good leader, at least, for in terms of being a parent, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to just tell them to do something, it's like, if we are truly a team, as I say we are, then it's like we all have to pitch in and to be doing something. So something as simple as simply like, we need to get some stuff done, chores, clean up. I'm not sitting here, watching Netflix and I'm having my kids roam around, right? I'm actually doing something, and I go to them, I'm like, okay, guys, I need your help, right? While I'm doing this, can you do that? And can you do that? That way we can finish it all together, and then we can basically get out of here and go do something, you know what I mean? That's more fun for all of us, right? So I think that's like leading myself in that way is to know that, okay, well, I know my good points, I know my bad points. I know that being a parent is one of the long-term leadership roles you will ever have.
Amen, brother.
So
Amen.
I just sort of say to myself, okay, I gotta like emotionally balance the frustrations of being a dad, right? And knowing that maybe my kids are not basically doing what they're supposed to be doing, but yet put that leadership hat on, like the guy sort of in charge, and say, okay, instead of coming down on them, let me explain to them, right? Have them understand what the issue is, and then so they can understand, okay, why something is going to happen that they may not like, or why something is going to change, right? So that the team can just sort of cooperate and operate at a more cohesive like environment, right? A cohesive way. And I think that actually flows directly into the business world as well, right? Instead of basically reacting to a certain way when your employee does something wrong, coming down on them hard and say, you screwed up, how, you know, blah, 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 because of this, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not going to inspire the person to actually come to you again and say, I messed up. They're going to hide it. They're going to try to fix it. Maybe even try to shift it off to somebody else and say, well, I don't know what happened. It was a glitch in the system. I don't know what happened. Do you know what I mean? So if you lead, if you have a great self-awareness to know that, okay, I have to express myself in a specific way. I might be upset that a milestone might be missed for ABC reason, but the same matter of fact is that, you know, I have to take that on, because if I am the leader, then it ends with me. So then it's a matter of talking to that employee, figuring out what happened, keeping the open dialogue so they can continue to come to you when stuff happens, and to say that I don't care if you mess up. I don't care, because we're all humans, we all mess up. I just want to know about it, so that way we can work together to fix it.
And I think there's a little bit of Simon Sinek there in your sharing, right? I mean, Simon Sinek is a big fan. He says, you know, instead of you know, somebody's basically missed their sales goal in the last 2 quarters, instead of pulling them into the office and berating them and telling them that they're going to get regulated down to, you know, a different position, maybe the mailroom or, you know, some other job, or even lose their job, rather than pulling them in and just saying, hey, Brian, I just wanted to meet with you today to check in. Is this everything okay? Is everything okay? How about you start there, right? And there you might learn something incredibly critical that may be going on with that person, that where you will have an opportunity to assist and help in getting them whole again, if you will, is the way I like to, and then that performance may start to change and start, the trajectory starts to go up again, right? So I like that you brought that flavor into it. So for sure. Mr. Casanova, you know, aspects of leading yourself and what that means, you know, because I know for myself it's times where whether you want to do a workout or you don't want to do a workout, right? It's that self-talk where you got to lead yourself, right? Take command and control and say, okay, you know, I have to do the work. So what are your thoughts on learning to lead yourself? Because we're getting another system glitch there. What's going on? Okay, so not sure what's happening.
This sucks.
Well, definitely a different flow on today's show. It's a first time that we're having so many people together. It's a learning. All good. Small potatoes. Are things working on your end there, Roger?
Yeah, shit's working now.
Okay.
God dang it. Go hit me up, man.
So the question was learning to lead yourself. So you do have an echo again. You know, that might make it a little bit more coming through clearly.
Hold on, buddy.
So while Roger's working on that, anybody have a great story or example of horrible bosses without mentioning names and giving a great story of how not to? I can count on you, Mr. Renna.
I work in the film industry, so I'm
You're gonna have to mute yourself, Roger.
I mean, I work in the film industry, so obviously I will always be very careful and very generic in how I do this. But you know, there's working on some shows, you will find incredible people that you will work with, and I've worked with some of the best in the business here in Vancouver. And then occasionally, you get the people that you know took on the job because any other job they wouldn't be able to hold for longer than 6 months because of their miserable attitudes and the way that they treat people. And as an example, I was working on a show I broke 2 bones in my foot. Rolled my ankle on some wet soil, and went back the very next day to do a 15-hour day, and had 2 broken bones in my foot. And the boss, because I won't call him a leader, the boss comes in and he goes, "Why are you limping?" And I was like, "Oh, I broke 2 bones in my foot." And he goes, "Well, you're at work, right?" I said, "Yeah." And he just goes, "Well, if you're okay enough to work, stop limping. You look like a pussy."
Wow.
And I was like, And then maybe about 2 hours later, his boss shows up on site, and he, we were kind of chatting back and forth, and he's like, "How's your foot?" And I was just like, "It hurts like hell, but whatever. The job's got to get done. Yada yada, right?" And he puts his arm around me, and he says to the guy, he was like, "Man, you got somebody." Uh, um, so he puts his arm around me, and he was just like, "Man, you got some guy here in Marco." He says, "Marco is, you got to treat this guy like gold. He should be working 5 days a week. He's the best guy you've got on your crew, period." Never worked another day. Never worked another day for that guy. And it was because in his mind, my job, my sole purpose in existence was to make him look good every single day, but never receive congratulations for making him look good. It wasn't up to me to be ambitious. It was up to him to carry me up the ladder on his back as long as I made him look good. And I realized from that day the kind of personalities that you get in certain industries, because I've had 5 different careers. I've had lots of people like him that I've worked with. And I've had very few people like that really do support the people underneath them, right? And it was it's a tough business.
Awesome. Thanks for that example. So, Roger, I want you in here, man, participating. So I don't know if you've got your echo scenario working out for you.
Let me know. How's it sounding?
So far, so good.
Okay.
Oh, got the echo going again.
Really?
So,
Damn it. Yeah. I don't know what the deal is. I got all kinds of electronic shit around me. Maybe something's live. I don't know what, but
keep going.
Okay. So ask me. Hit me up, man. What's the question?
Question was learning to lead yourself, more not worrying about leading other people per se, but what it means to lead yourself, like holding accountability to things that are standards that may be expected of other people, but you have the same standards for yourself as another way to do the question.
Well, damn. I tell you what, man, I have had, for most of my life, I think I've had a tough time leading myself. I don't know if it's because of the artist mentality, because I think sometimes artists are just kind of like, they're out there, man. I don't think I'm really far out there, but my method of living is different. Like I said, sometimes I feel like I just go with the wind, and that's not the best way to lead or to live your life. So I try to function as well as I can, by trying to make the right moves and having the right people around me. So that's kind of like how I work. The other thing is with me is that I think, because I know a lot of you guys read. When I was younger, I did do a lot of reading. Somewhere along the line that stopped. I'm not sure what it was, but I actually found out not too long ago that my daughter is dyslexic, and she's functioning. She's working at the sheriff's office with me, as a matter of fact, and she's a sharp young lady, and I think she's turned out to be sharper than her dad. But I have a feeling that somewhere along the line, I also have some kind of like a learning disability, to where it's hard for me to concentrate on certain things. It's hard for me to absorb certain things. I've never been tested, so I have a feeling that for me, it's funny though, because for the way I'm able to function and to get things done and to lead other people, which is really, really unique in itself. I do believe that it does keep me from maybe reaching this higher plateau. I don't know. I'm just assuming things right now and thinking this is what I see in myself. But it never stops my drive, and it never stops me from trying harder, and it never stops me from progressing. So hopefully that makes sense.
No, no,
But
it totally does, and that's a great example. Maybe it's reverb, but I know only one person's talking at a time. It seems to work, but we'll just go with it. Maybe if you mute yourself, Roger, again.
I am. I'm gonna mute it right now.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, so there's the solution there. Just when we're shifting who's chatting, so you nailed it on the head, right? You're looking inward at the things that you need to ultimately try to work on and improve, and not let them cripple you, if you will, right, or get in the way. And then that way you're able to kind of work outward and work with people and lead people. So another really good example. So Sylvain, do you have a good story, whether it's a good, bad, or the ugly, as far as an experience in leadership? There's all kinds out there, whether it was a boss, it could be a teacher, it could be a teammate, whatever, coach.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people that have been able to give me tidbits of to improve myself, to become a better leader. But it's something Roger mentioned, when you're a certain type, right? And he says he's more of an artistic. And so like with myself, more of a type A and analytical. The sympathy, empathy side is very difficult for me. And my antennas are super short. Like, my wife's antennas are probably 5 foot long. She reads people. And for me, I take it for face value. Somebody comes into the office and says, in an interview and tells me, oh, yeah, I'm willing to work all the time. I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to do that. And then all of a sudden you hire them, and it's completely different. It's they're like, it's 4 o'clock. Are we going home? Hey, you sent me an email yesterday at 8 o'clock, and you shouldn't be sending me emails at 8 o'clock. And I think we've discussed this before. And the bad here is my own leadership. I think in some points, it's because my short antennas was like, at 4 o'clock I'm typically up, and so my mind is sharp, and I start sending out emails to the staff, thinking that they're going to look at them at 8 o'clock in the morning. Whereas today, technology, cell phones, everybody's getting everything immediately. And so some people who sleep with their phones by their bed, guilty. They get that email, and then they're like, what are you doing emailing me at 4 o'clock in the morning? And I'm like, what are you doing looking at an email? What are you doing up? And they're like, well, what are you doing up? So it's, and so I've had to learn. I can't remember if it was Marco who said, that said, the wife's, is kind of the leader at home, but she's taught me so much, because we're complete opposites, where she's very empathetic and very sympathetic and whatnot. So she then kind of sits down and says, well, it's kind of not normal for somebody to be sending out emails at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so learning technology, because I can build you a house, but computers I'm not so strong with. I didn't know that you could put an email and put it that it sends later, so it was everything. Everything's in the brain, send it off now. And so that's, I've learned a lot by leading people, and people giving me their feedback. So communication is key. And that's how I learn. I learned that way. So for me, it's that was good.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to hitch my wagon to that message there, because a couple of things. One is, I've learned my phone automatically goes on do not disturb at a certain time. And then when you learn that you can set your favorites, like your wife can get through, your kids can get through, and you can shut off the rest of the world. I learned to do that because I got pulled and torn in many different directions, having been self-employed and all that good stuff, where you're constantly, messages at all times, and you feel as though you're compelled to have to answer these people right away, right? And as far as the other thing you said that I like is feedback. Really sound leadership and leaders are the first ones to want to hear how they're doing. They want to take the temperature of how they're doing for their team. They're not afraid of doing that. Now, that's a rare thing, because most leaders more act like the boss, right? And Marco, you brought up that distinction earlier on, and it's fine for the boss to be going and giving you all kinds of feedback, but then when you're like, hey, there's a few things I could use better from you, boss lady or boss man, and I'm going to use an example for me where I failed, and in a leadership role that I was in, there was a lot of things going sideways behind the scenes, because as a leader, sometimes you're privy to information that the front row doesn't get, or the front lines doesn't get to see, right? That's why I say leadership is a lonely place, man. And a lot of times you're on an island by yourself trying to manage these things and do good by the team that you're leading. And things were going sideways with the board, and they want to make all kinds of changes and potentially cutting jobs that were part of my world. And I was getting consumed by that, and I was stressed by that, because fiscally they were saying we weren't hitting the goals. But there's a whole other story behind that piece. But for 6 months, I was zero dark 30. I was very inward with myself, and I lost myself in that stress. But I had one beautiful, brilliant teammate, and she wasn't shy. And she came to me to my office and said to me, she said, Steph, basically a la Simon Sinek, are you okay? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm okay. I'm always okay. I was lying through my teeth. And then she put it to me another way. And I get emotional at this point, because I remember crying after she asked me the question. She said, where have you been the last 6 months? Where have you been? And my heart sank, because she was 100% spot on. The truth was in the air. It was there. And I knew that, right? I knew that I was abandoning my post. Hey, Sylvain, you're on mute. I knew I was abandoning my post. All good. We're having a good time here.
Sorry, I was saying long antennas. She had long antennas.
Long antennas, right? And then those are the things that you start learning from other people and putting into your leadership bucket. So we talked a lot about that so far. I want to take a fork in the road here and talk about accountability. Accountability. Man, it's a heavy word, right? Because 9 times out of 10, it's approached in a very bad way. Yesterday, Roger and O'Brien and I had a fun little chat for a half an hour or so about communication, which is a theme here too, and oftentimes how it's served up. How the message is packaged and served up is oftentimes, not good, and it can be abrasive, and you wonder why the receiver responds a certain way. So accountability. So when I throw that word out, I'm going to go to UOB, is what does the word accountability conjure up in your mind?
Accountability. To me, it's just, it's funny. My mind first goes into the workplace, and it goes to the point of simply being honest with yourself and honest with your teammates when you mess up, right? Mm-hmm. To say that, okay, well, you've been assigned a task. You've been, because I'm an IT guy, for those of you who don't know, right? I've been in the IT world for, over 20 years, that type of thing. So things break all the time. You know what I mean? Whether you're working on it or you're just plugging away at something else, and all of a sudden, bang, you got a fire over there. You never really knew that was going on. You're like, damn. So now you got to go over there and take care of that, right? So I find that I see in some cases, not just in the IT world, but, when mistakes are made, and then people, they don't accept that responsibility and or accountability of, like, you know what? Okay, listen, they don't put their hands up, right? They're not like, okay, you know what? That was me. That one's mine. This is what I was attempting to do. Obviously, this is what happened. I think this is what I can do to fix it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that part of accountability, I think those 3 levels is what makes it okay, and what makes it less fearful, because so many people, they just want to like not take responsibility or be accountable for their own actions. No, that's that in the workplace, and there's also on the personal side too as well. Like when you're with your partner, you know what I mean? And then you got to realize that words have an impact, right? And that's something I've been constantly reminding myself. Words have an impact. And so that, you know, you gotta hold yourself accountable in your relationship. So whether you're saying something, you know what I mean, and you know what I mean, and you don't know the impact that those words just had on your partner, well, you know, some people, they don't take responsibility for that. You know, it's either something along the lines of, let's just say, oh, well, you know, I don't have time to deal with this right now. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, wait, your words just hurt me, right? So what are you saying, that you're not going to be take responsibility for your own actions in this relationship? You know what I mean? So accountability, I think it floats in all walks of life, whether it's in business or whether it's in your personal life. And, you know, you just got to realize, don't be afraid. I teach my kids this. Don't be afraid to put your hand up and say, that was me. All right. I teach my kids this, man. And this thing really jacks me up. I get really jacked up. So there's strength in that. There's strength in basically owning it. I teach my kids that all the time. There's strength in owning it, right? Because at that point, you know, once you own it, it's yours. Once it's yours, it becomes less fearful. And once it's less fearful, then you're able to deal with it, face it head on, and then just sort of march forward, no matter what the outcome is. Own it first. It's yours. That was me, right? And then you just work the problem until it gets to whatever solution that you need, or what that's required, even if it's not what you need, but it's what's required.
And that's what I call integrity, which is, you know, absolutely everything, especially in teams. So I'm going to throw up, and we're going to go around again about accountability, because for me, structure determines behavior, guys. That's why I'm a fan of accountability. Without it, you got nothing. Okay. So here's one of my favorite all-time books. Okay. It's called Legacy. I've listened to it about 3 times, audiobook. It's all about the All Blacks. It's written in a very layman's way. And they talk about really the essence of accountability, but collaborative accountability. It's one thing to be accountable for yourself, put up your hand, I messed up, I screwed that up, I own it, and I'm going to go out of my way to do the bang-up job of fixing it if I can fix it, right? So what you're talking about there will be. But then there's collaborative accountability and how that ties into leadership. Great leaders create environments of trust where it's okay to F up. No problem. Nobody's going to hold you, to a stake and burn you, whatever it's going to be. Hey, man, all good. We're human beings and it happens. But what are we going to do to right the ship or fix it, right? So great leaders do a bang-up job of creating that environment of trust where it's collaborative accountability. And what I mean by that is everybody owns it. Everybody owns it. And that's why a team like the All Blacks are the most winningest professional team on the planet out of any other outfit, whether it's Major League Baseball, NHL, NBA, with an 83% winning percentage. So that's significant because it has everything to do with leadership and the amount of accountability that each player has to each other and the whole and what the team is trying to achieve together. So it'll be great stuff. So Roger, accountability in your mind's eye.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, man, for me, it's funny though, because Obi was saying a lot of great things there. Accountability is almost like a cleansing to me. When I jack up, when I fuck up, okay, of course I feel horrible about it. Of course I feel bad, okay? But the idea is to hopefully learn from those mistakes. Again, you learn from that. That's your intent. That's the idea, is that, look, I can confess to this because I know I'm not like that all the time, and I know I can do better. Okay, it's already ingrained in your mind. I know I can do better. Okay, so someone who's able to confess is, hey, look, man, I messed up, because they already know within themselves that that's not me. I don't do that 100% of the time, and I will, and I can make it better, and I'm going to learn from it. Not to mention the fact that you wind up telling, I don't mind confessing my mistakes, because again, it's natural, it's human. All right, we're human, we do some stupid things, but the thing you try to keep from doing is from doing it over and over again, those same damn mistakes. That's what we try to keep from doing. And that's why it's easy for me to go ahead and say, look, hey, look, yeah, I messed up. Okay. Because I already know that's not me. All right. Where it came from, I don't know. Why I did it, I don't know. Maybe I can't give you an answer today why I did it. It happened. But like I said, accountability to me, it's almost like a cleansing, man. You got to know how to use it. You know, you have to. If you're that kind of person, if you're that kind of guy, that kind of woman, you're gonna know how to use it and make it work to your benefit. And you also, it's again back on that thing. Your success. There's gonna be failures coming up all the damn time. The best successful people have made mistakes and they cry about it. Okay, but they get over it and they move on. You know, that's the idea.
I love the way you frame that, Roger, especially the cleansing part. I'm gonna steal that one. Yeah, accountability is those raw, real, honest moments with yourself where you own. The other thing I like that you said was, you know, you look to fix and to nudge yourself so you don't repeat the same mistakes. Whereas that's not common practice for a lot of people, a lot of leaders. They keep repeating the same pattern, and you sit there and you wonder why. And I'm going to quickly, you know, throw my bit in there. I call it the easy bake oven of catastrophe. And I use this analogy in a lot of my workshops is where you have your easy bake oven, you're putting all your ingredients on the front end and you're expecting a freaking miracle to come out, everything to go perfect. And then the timer goes off, ding, you drop the door to your easy bake oven and it's a perfectly formed turd. And you're looking at a perfectly formed turd and you're scratching your head and you're going, man, how in the hell did that happen? I think I did everything right on the front end. So then, well, okay, let's go back. And then you put in the same goddamn ingredients. And then you hit the timer and then ding, you open the door again. It's another perfectly formed turd. And then you see people doing that over and over again. You're like, man, listen, pick up a book. I don't know. Find somebody to model yourself by. Maybe you'll get some, I don't know. Sorry, I'm on a tangent.
Reroute.
Yeah, reroute, man. Change up your approach. Change up your ingredients. Anyway, sorry, guys. I'm passionate about this shit. Marco, accountability for you, my friend.
Well, it's kind of funny with Roger bringing up confessing so much because being a recovering Roman Catholic, you know, you go to the confession every Sunday and you know, do your thing, right? But it's true. I could probably write an Encyclopedia Britannica with all of the screw ups I've made in my life, and it wasn't until my late 40s that I earned the humility badge where I could own all of those mistakes, look back on them, and go, what did I learn from each one of these screw ups, right? And it's, you know, I mean, again, like bless my wife for being the patient angel that she is and just putting up with me, but she at least gave me the you know, the safe space where I could own my screw ups and learn from them. So I mean, as far as accountability is concerned, like, you know, it's life is not a popularity contest. And people tend to think that if they screw up, they're not going to be the cool kid on the schoolyard anymore. The problem with that is if you run your life like the election for the homecoming queen or who gets to be the captain of the football team, you're living your life in such a way that you'll never be accountable for your mistakes and you will never learn from them, right? Because the popular people aren't the people that are open to accept their mistakes, right? They tend to be the people that kind of get pushed off to one corner. I mean, you know, O'Brien works in IT. Sylvain is, you know, runs a company. Roger is a self-made artist. I've done a little bit of all of those things, and the one thing that I have that I've noticed is the most successful people that you see on the news every single day never say I'm sorry for screwing up. Elon Musk,
Yeah,
he screws up all the time. Have you ever heard him come on and say I'm sorry? You know, Jeff Bezos, have you ever heard him come on and go, oh, you know what, man, I pay my Amazon people in the warehouse shit, but you know what? You got your stuff in 24 hours or less. These guys don't care, right? And so people aspire to be that kind of person. Oh, I never have to say I'm sorry. But the real leaders out there are the people that are underneath them, that are taking all the heat for their screw ups, owning their mistakes, and amassing a team of strong people around them to fix them, right? Now, obviously, I'm never going to work for Elon or Jeff, but at the same time, it's one of those things where if you're going to be a good leader, you have to be accountable for your mistakes, and the people above you are going to make you accountable for your team's mistakes. And you've got to be able to be that person who can accept that kind of responsibility. And it's a huge responsibility. You know, parenting's the same thing. Teachers are always going to look at me and Serena and go, well, I mean, hey, you should have probably raised your kid better. And I'm not saying that about Lena, because Lena's an awesome kid, right? They would never come to us. But I mean, as parents, we are the reason why our kids turn out the way they turn out, right?
No, sorry, Marco, you nailed some significant things there. Like the nuggets I pull from that is, one is being real enough to be able to say sorry. Like that's a powerful statement for me. Is too many people just don't know how. They just don't know how to utter those words or to say those words. I like the popular bit. A lot of leaders out there are more interested in parading and look at me, look at me, look at me, and being the popular person versus getting to task on what everybody needs and not playing favorites. And there's a quote there's two quotes that I like, is the truth. Sorry, so what's popular isn't always the truth, and the truth isn't always popular. And that's what we're driving at here, right? And it's easy to go with the status quo. And later I'll share another blunder of the leadership story with you based on following the status quo, even if it's wrong as heck. So in the parenting piece, I've always said 100% biggest, most, important leadership role out there. Definitely, for sure. So that's huge what you just said. So I'm going to go to Sylvain. Sylvain, accountability. Did we already ask you that question, Sylvain?
No, not yet. No, I had to.
Yeah. How about accountability for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, accountability, I think that's something that I learned very young, at a very young age. So it was, I've always been accountable to myself, but, probably the hardest on myself. And so as most people tend to be, harder on ourselves, but I've made so many mistakes that when people around me make mistakes, I tend to, and it's bizarre because I don't have patience for a lot of things, but for some reason, I had a worker. We were installing an air conditioner. He had to drill a hole through the side of the house so we could run the pipes through the outside to the basement. And next thing you know, I find out, and I'm on the job with him too, and I found out that he actually drilled through the living room wall and into a speaker. And so, right away, and it was a pretty expensive speaker. So,
of course.
Yeah, so of course he thought right away, I'm losing my job, and I'm like, hey, the speaker can be bought and the wall will be fixed and we don't have to worry about it. I'll just, so I went to the owner, kind of explained it. I said, hey, this stuff happens. And the owner was kind of cool about it too. So, no, I think I've always, for that, I've, like I say, patience or empathy, for that, I think I've been fairly good at, when it comes to mistakes. I've crashed cars. Things happen, and so it is what it is, and you just find a solution. And I think being harder on myself for stuff like that has also helped me become a solutions person, because you don't want to make that mistake again. Right. So, I wrote a little earlier, the definition of insanity is doing the same mistakes over and over again, but not realizing that you're doing it, and you keep making the same mistakes. I mean, for me, accountability has always been my priority to myself. I hold myself very accountable. And I do expect it from others as well. But I've taken courses and seminars, and actually had a life coach, business coach, who was trying to hold me accountable to some stuff. And our relationship didn't last very long. It was I found it was very telling what to do, and not preaching or not doing what he's preaching as well. So it's, I don't know, it's, for me, that's what that is.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You're speaking to credibility there, right? There's another word that fits into everything we're talking about, right? Walking your talk, instead of, like you said, you're telling people how to do things, but on the other end, you're not embodying those things as well. Leadership always fascinates me, right? There's, again, coming back to something we said earlier around expectations that we have from teams that potentially that we lead, or people that we're responsible for, and we're not getting the results that we want. And here's a good conversation I had with a supervisor recently, and situations where you have a standard, you have an expectation from the employee, and that employee is not meeting that standard. And this is where, again, why 70% of supervisors don't talk to their people, because when it's not going right, it's uncomfortable. A leader will let it fester, let it stew, and then they let it go 4 or 5 months, and then the lid will come blowing off the pot. And the next thing you know, I'm just completely eviscerating Marco in front of all of his peers about, I don't know, he's always coming in 5, 6, 7 minutes late, but I'm waiting 6 months before I had enough to actually have the conversation with him, versus, it happens a couple of times and pulling him in, whatever. So this supervisor was saying, I'm struggling with these things, leading the team. And I usually get, I know from the employee. And I go, great. So what do you do with that? I leave it alone. I'm frustrated. I'm like, he says, so I said, so hopefully it'll just get right on its own, but it's not. So I coached him through. I did a little coaching session with him. I said, this is what I do in those situations. I go, that's awesome, Roger. Tell me what you do know. And I get the individual to walk me through what they do know, especially if it's having to be compliant to whatever standard or an expectation. And it doesn't have to be confrontational. You pick your FM radio voice and you say, hey, Roger, what do you do know? That's great. So 2 things will happen. So Roger will walk me through what he does know, and there may be gaps in his understanding of the expectation that maybe was set. And I go, ooh, me as a leader, I didn't really highlight those things that he's missing in there. That's on me. So I got to go for the gap and fill the gap. That's opportunity number 1. Opportunity. Yeah, thanks, Serena. Yeah, FM radio voice. Yeah, that's right, Serena. So the other scenario that may happen is Roger may walk me through a perfectly good, I know, A to Z, that then I go, well, then what's the hitch? You've just explained to me, you completely understand what's expected of you, but you're not meeting it. So now let's talk about that. So that's why I want to use that example, because it happens every day in leadership and in teams. And that's why people don't talk to each other, right? It just, everything breaks down, right? This is about acquiring some more skills. So I'm going to throw a question out there, and the first person that raises their hands to want to challenge it, this is one of my personal favorite. Who wants to take a crack at defining the old adage of throwing somebody under the bus? Yeah, I had money on you, Marco. Okay, buddy, it's all yours. What does it mean to you? How do you understand that adage?
So it is, you know what? And I've worked for a lot of people like this, where they will just go, oh, he's the one who screwed up. Well, you're his boss. You're supposed to teach him how to do it right. Well, yeah, but I mean, we can replace him. You can't replace me. Right? And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to me, because at the end of the day, and depending on whether you work corporate or you're self-employed or you're whatever, the buck always stops with you. If you're the leader, you have the penultimate responsibility to make sure that everything behind you is going right. So when it does screw up, it's your fault. And that's why you get paid more. And that's why you have all of this responsibility. And that's why you drive a nice car. And why that guy's got to take a bus to work. Don't make the guy who takes a bus to work every day responsible for you not being a good leader.
Yep. Okay. So OB, what about you? Throwing somebody under the bus. Your personal thoughts on that, maybe even experiences. Everybody's going to get a kick at the can here.
that me?
Yeah, you will be.
Oh, my personal experience of throwing somebody under the bus. Okay, let me think quickly here.
It's even how you
Oh yeah,
understand,
sorry.
just how you understand it.
Oh well, how I understand it, it's exactly the same that Marcos described it. I mean, okay, I've seen it so many times too. Like like IT world, whether a contractor or an employee, like for sure, I've seen the exact same thing, and it's the mentality of like, it's like the mentality of because the quote unquote leader, is it has that same mentality. Well, it's easier just to sort of blame the person below me than to take the responsibility and to deal with whatever situation it is, right? I've seen it happen 1,000 times as well, right? I've also seen it on the rare occasion where the leader took that responsibility, right? And she was my team lead. Stuff happened, right? And actually I was the one who performed the action, right? I got a request. It seemed relatively easy enough to do. I thought about it and I was like, okay, I don't see this having a major impact. So I went on the computer, did my IT thing, boom, request done, right? Next thing you know, I'm getting a call from my manager, and she's like, hey, O'Brien, notice this, that, and the other thing. What's going on with this? I was like, well, I just got the request from so and so, and I looked at it and I thought, okay, well, it's a simple request that we do like countless of times during a given day. And then she was like, okay, so this is the thing. She goes, by you doing that, she goes, this and that just got broke, right? She goes, and I was like, holy crap, I didn't know. She's like, that's fine, right? No one would know, right? That's why I'm here. So this is what we're going to do, right? Just leave it. Don't do anything. She goes, I'm going to handle it, right? I said, okay. And she goes, and if anybody comes to you to reverse what you just did, don't reverse it. Just leave it there. She goes, I'm going to take care of it. And then don't do anything until you hear from me. I said, okay, great. So I'm sitting here thinking, fuck, man, I just broke 2 systems by making changes, but it was a simple request. So all in all, the situation got handled, right? She basically dealt with whatever she had to deal with on her side. She came back to me. She said, Brian, this is the deal. She goes, now put it back to the original place. If you ever get a request from, dealing with this system specifically from that individual, just basically tell that individual to come talk to me going forward, right?
Nice.
So that was an example. She could have thrown me under the bus.
Yeah.
She could have just said like, well, it was my guy O'Brien, but she didn't do that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like when you have that rare occasion where somebody basically just worked the problem and didn't throw you under the bus, if you're self-aware enough to realize, okay, I need to now level up my game to do whatever I can to make this person look even better, because this person had my back and she didn't stab me in it. She patted me on it and said, keep on going.
Yeah, great example. And there's your leader supported you. And again, those are the examples that we want. Those are the examples we want to see, like the pet budgie again, right? And those things that you go, that's what it looks like, right? That's why storytelling and examples are so important, because it tells you what it should look like, feel like, and sound like. If I don't have examples of what people want me to model, I'm going to dream some shit up, and I'll probably be in the left field when I should be running in the right end of the field. So great example. Roger, throwing somebody under the bus, kind of like, hey, kick that can down the road a little bit.
Yeah, I believe in it. Is that what you're asking?
You believe in throwing somebody under the bus? You believe in throwing somebody under the bus?
No. I mean, hey, in my line of work, with the with law enforcement, I mean, we're throwing people under the bus. We're throwing them on top of the bus. They go in the bus. It's vicious, man. That's one thing I try to refrain from doing. It's so easy sometimes because you do have a lot of people that are accountable in certain professions and stuff like that, and it's kind of like the military. I mean, when somebody screws up, there's somebody better answer for the screw up, and no one wants to be that guy, it seems,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an ugly part of business. I think that it happens a lot. And other than that, I definitely refrain from doing that. It's slightly kind of takes us back to what we talked about before, accountability.
There it
You
is.
know,
There it is. There it is.
okay, you're accountable for if you make some mistakes, there should be no reason to put anybody under no damn bus. You know,
100%.
however, we've got those people that do that, right? You know,
Yeah.
I come across it a lot, but that's my take on it, man.
No, perfect, Roger. Now I am going somewhere with this. There is method in the madness here, and there's madness in my method. So one more person I want to hear from as far as just your thoughts and ideas and feelings about the adage of throwing somebody or people under the bus. Sylvain.
Yeah, I think like Roger mentioned, it happens every day, all day kind of thing. But I wrote a little something there about when I was much younger, I used to throw my brother under the bus all the time, right? Fear of getting reprimanded, right? Just
That's perfect, man.
Yeah, it was just, no, he did it, and even my own kids, I remember my kids and my mom came up with the story, right? It was well, I guess the ghost, not me, did it. And so but so yeah, it was for me, I think when I started to hold myself accountable, then I saw no more reason to ever want to throw somebody under the bus, because you don't grow from pushing off your mistakes or whatnot. So it's that's for me.
Well, you know what? I love that because I didn't even think about that. I mean, the origin story of learning to throw somebody under the bus definitely starts in childhood, especially if you have siblings. And me having been the younger sibling, I've got tracks on my back for days, man, to be thrown under that bus. So where I was going with that is because I know Mickey Mickelson is watching, and so we had him on the show last week, and you know that him and I were colleagues in a previous life. So what inspired me to throw that topic out there, and I use it in all my leadership training when we talk about accountability, is Mickey would often say the statement to me, because I was the national sales director, so I was the leader and whatnot, and he'd say, "Hey, Steph, we'd be driving in the car and we're waiting on something significant from another higher up of something coming through as far as accountability, so that we can move on with our part and maybe closing some deals, but somebody's not doing their job." And Mickey would say, "Steph, I don't mean to throw Billy Bob under the bus, but," and then it would happen a couple of times, and I would stop Mickey and say, "Mickey," I go, "hold on, let's pump the brakes here." I go, it has to be this. Here's the question. Is the person not doing what they're tasked with? So if the facts are the person's not being accountable to what they said they were going to be delivered, and you're bringing it to my attention for me to do something about it, that's not throwing somebody under the bus, right? Because some people will understand it that way. They'll go, "I don't want to throw Marco under the bus." But I'm like, well, did Marco shit the bed and not do his job? So we need to, right? That's what I want to look at. That's what I want to look at, because that's not throwing somebody under the bus, right? Or even look at a team dynamic meetings. Maybe you guys have had this experience, right? So you've got the boss supervisor in the room, and then there's 5 or 6 of us. Let's say it's us, and we all own a piece of the pie, and we have our weekly meeting, and I'm supposed to come with my piece, and then supervisor says, "Steph, hey, where are you at on da-da-da?" And I go, "Yeah, I don't have that done, boss." Why is that? Why isn't that? Well, I was waiting on O'Brien. I sent O'Brien an email maybe through, and it's a load of bullpucky, right? But O'Brien, being the type of guy where he doesn't want to, get confrontational in the meeting room. You see it all the time, right? But his face is turning red, it's going quiet, and he's burning a hole in my head. And he can't believe he just did that. So that's another example of throwing somebody under the bus, right? And then after the meeting breaks, and this is all true stuff. It's going to be my book. The meeting breaks. Then O'Brien comes to me and goes, "I can't believe you just did that." I go, "What?" So throw me under the bus. I go, "Yeah, well, it's like getting somebody else to take it for the team, right?" And that comes back to everything we've been throwing around here, around having that collaborative accountability, where you can go, "Yes, I didn't get my piece done." Maybe somebody can say, "Hey, Steph," maybe O'Brien will be like, "Hey, maybe you need help with that. Maybe I do need help with that," right? So I wanted to just kind of pick your brains around throwing somebody under the bus, because it gets misused all the time. If somebody's not doing their job and you're calling them out on it, you're not throwing that person out under the bus, right? So anyway, we have some books to show, because this is a part of the show that I wanted to touch on, because we talk about leadership, right? And oftentimes books are written by leaders, and these leaders play a role in our lives. And maybe why we've picked up the book is because we see there's a gap in our skills, whether it's personal, professional, spiritual, whatever it may be. We're looking to fill a gap. At least that's for me how I always approach books. I need to learn some more stuff on XYZ. So let's throw some random ones out there. You guys were all very kind to send a book out. So I like this one, this cover here. O'Brien, I think that's one of yours. Love that. Actually, I have a t-shirt. No, just kidding. Go ahead, O'Brien. Tell me the significance of this book. Maybe some leadership themes and kind of why you picked up this book. What were you looking to achieve with it?
Well, first off, I mean, just look at the cover. It has a Superman feel to it. I'm a big comic book geek, right? That type of thing. DC, Marvel, comic books, so I said, obviously it caught my eye. I was like, what's this? Let me get closer. You know what I mean? So yeah, and then obviously level up your life. And then I said, okay, you know what? Let me check this book out, right? Obviously, it's got comic book feel to it. It's going to appeal to me at some level, somewhere, right? There's some nerdiness in here. It's got to be, right? And yeah, bang! It was. It's a really, 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 really good book, man. That type of thing. It's more or less, I would say, not in essence for a book about leadership and leading others. It's more necessarily about I guess leading yourself and your own self growth, right? So, and it's really geared towards like the nerd, the IT, the geek individual. There's a lot of references in that book to like the Matrix and playing certain type of video games or whatever. And the whole premise of that book is simply about treating life as a video game. And if you played any form of video game, you start at the bottom, right? Especially if it's a role-playing game, you start with zero, nothing, and you go along and you take out a couple of bad guys or monsters and you pick up that better shield or that better dagger. And it's about leveling up your life in the form of treating your life as a video game to say that, okay, what's your next level up point? What is it that you got to reach so you can go from a level 2 cleric to the level 3 cleric? And then what is that level 3 going to give you as a form of a new power, a new skill, a new piece of armor, whatever that case may be? So I really liked that book simply because it talked to me in like a language I totally understood. It just sort of made you think about life and objectives and growth from a video game perspective. Treat it as a game. And if you played any game, there's a beginning and then there's a milestone, there's the big boss or mid-level boss, and it's like, well, what are you going to do to get up there? What do you need to do to strengthen up yourself to hit that level boss and to beat him and to move on?
Cool. I love I'll have to pick up that book for sure. I love the references. So I got another book cover here. I believe you know who owns this book when you'll see it, so you can speak to it. So there you go. Okay. Yeah, Sly, that's you, right?
Yeah, man. So for me, a big challenge was getting away from my tunnel vision of just work, success, and learning to be present. And so a good friend of mine actually kind of recommended that, and amongst other books that I have that are kind of on that subject. But being present for me really was the start. And I think I want to say I bought that book probably when I hit 40. So I was a late bloomer. But it was, and it's still an ongoing challenge, of course, but every once in a while I've got a lot of books. And actually when I was looking for books, I asked my daughter to send me some pictures, and she says, well, most of your books are not there. So my wife put the ones that I go to less, she put them away in boxes, because every once in a while I go back to my books and I've highlighted sections. So then I reread them to remind myself. And so for me, that's something that I find for me, books, like you were saying, it fills in the gaps. Or if I'm in a need for something, somebody can recommend a book to you, but if you're not at the point in your life where you're willing to accept what you're reading, You're just going to read through it, and you're not going to absorb anything, right? And back when I was much younger, bullheaded, wasn't ready, I think, to accept a lot of stuff. So I'd go to a lot of seminars and a lot of things, and I would probably capture maybe 5 or 10% of something I would learn. Whereas now with age, I guess I'm maturing slowly. It's
Heaven forbid.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid, slut.
Yeah. So, but now I seem to be able to absorb more, and which is now helping me more as well. So, yeah. So that book was the start for me to learning how to be more present.
Well, you said a few things that are quite meaningful there. I mean, at least for me, one is being ready in a point in your life where you're open to the information that you're looking through and taking the time to to digest and whatnot. Because if you're not open to it, right, you certainly it's to no avail. And the other thing too is I'm just trying to throw up some comments too. Obviously, it's something that you said, but is being present. I still struggle with that still to this day. I actually don't do a very good job of being present. I have some days where it works maybe for an hour or two, but then I unravel pretty quick about staying and being in the moment. So, but anyway, that's for me to continue to work on. So I have, you'll know who. All right, let's throw up another book here. You'll know who you are, and we'll keep it to maybe 2-3 minutes so we can get through some other ones here. I've also have consumed this one, so you know who you are. All right, buddy.
That's Marcos. That's Marcos.
Now, and I'm getting called out by Roger too. That's awesome. Yeah, man. You know what? The subtle art of not giving a fuck. It's dude, you know what? I spent so much of my life caring what other people thought of me instead of really working hard on being me and just making people understand me. And it goes to what you were saying, Steph, about being present. I think that book really kind of talks about being present, owning yourself, being you, with all of your flaws and all of your virtues, but being you. And I think going to accountability and leadership and staying thematic in that way, you have to stop. I had to. I'm not going to say anybody else. I had to stop caring what people thought, because they're thinking things for one of two reasons. Either I'm somewhere that they want to be, or I'm standing in the way of them not giving a fuck about other people's feelings about them, right? And I mean, as an example, this, again, working in the film set, you get a lot of different personalities. And I was working with a person this summer who wanted to be the most popular person on set, the most valued person on set, et cetera, et cetera. And they would tell everybody every day about how great they are, instead of showing them, instead of leading with their own actions. And they ended up being the source of ridicule on set for the entire time. And this made them feel really angry. But it's like, listen, you know what? If you put yourself up there to be a kick toy, you're going to be a kick toy, because everybody around you is having a rotten day, and they would love to lash out. And if you're putting yourself up there on a pole, they're going to grab a stick, right? And the sad part ended up being that this person was in a position higher up than I was, and had alienated most of the other people around that were required for us to do our job every single day. And so it became incumbent on myself and my partner in the middle management status to repair all of the bridges that had been lit aflame. Right? So, the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Don't give a fuck. This person hated me, and I just arrived at the conclusion of that hatred 2 days ago with a phone call from the labor relations department saying, yeah, you're okay. And it was a 5-month battle going back and forth that finally came to a conclusion because this person didn't read the book.
Right. So, okay, because I've also consumed the book too. For me, again, like OB's book, The Superman, of course, the title caught, and I'll share some of mine in a minute, caught my attention too, because I'm like, yeah, what is that? What does that feel like to not give a bleep, What does that feel like? That must feel pretty good, because I know there's a lot of people walking around out there mastering that, but for the wrong reasons, right? But for me I always struggled as well, worrying about what other people thought about me, or of my actions and how I'm being received, or I shied away from a lot of opportunities, or even chasing some of my aspirations. Yes, Marco. And because I worried about what people would say, even as far as to even launch this show on the cusp, right? I was on the cusp for a long time of launching this thing for those very reasons. What are people going to say? What are people going to think? But at the end of the day, I'm like you said, Marco, it's like, this is me. This is who I am. And you know what? You take it or leave it. I'm not here walking this earth to preoccupy myself with what everybody else thinks, right? So, yeah, Marco, go ahead.
Quickly to interject. This is why this means so much to me. Be a goldfish. There was a scene in that show where a person's having a really rough time, and Ted Lasso pulls him to one side, and he's just like, "Listen, you're having a rough time. What is the happiest animal on earth?" He goes, "No, I don't know." He goes, "A goldfish." He says, "Goldfish has a 10-second memory." And I'll expand on that. The goldfish swims around the bowl and sees that new plant that you just put in there. Went, "Hey, look at that beautiful plant." And then comes back around and goes, "Hey, look at that castle that's here now." Then comes back around, "Oh, look at that pretty plant in front of the castle." Why is the goldfish the happiest animal on earth? Because it's got a 10-second memory. It doesn't remember the shit that happened 10 seconds ago.
Oh, man.
Everything is new. Everything is interesting. Everything is a blessing because of that 10-second memory. So you know what? I wear this with a badge of honor, and it goes right into the subtle art of not giving a fuck. I got a 10-second memory span. So 10 seconds ago doesn't matter.
That's great. Great story. To be a goldfish, I guess, to reincarnate it, maybe that's what I'll ask for. Hey, Roger, I know you sent me some pictures, not books, but of people that had an impact, in your life, and kind of played a leadership role in your life for the things that you do every single day. So pick one and you talk about that. Roger, you there? Nope, I think got some tech challenges today. So while Roger's doing that, I'm going to throw another book up there. Here's one of mine. Okay, The Life-Changing Science of Detecting Bullshit. And I'll take 30 seconds on that one. So I recently consumed that one. I know you gentlemen will all love this one if you do decide to pick it up. And the author speaks to, he actually is a scientist. He studies bullshit and the impacts that it has on humanity in teams. And he uses a 3-fly bullshit meter. And he goes, okay, so 1 fly on the bullshit meter means, well, it's just a tall tale story, doesn't really have an impact, doesn't really hurt anybody. And then you get the idea as you go to a 2-fly or a 3-fly, right? Is a 3-fly is really bad because the lies and the bullshit that you're spreading out there is detrimental to people, right? Can even if threaten people's lives, right? Especially at the political level. So that one was the best. So Roger, before you went 0 dark 30 on me there again, so I know you have a couple of pictures you sent me of people, not books, but you pick one you want to talk about that played a role in.
Yeah, let's throw up Pablo up there, man.
Yeah, I don't have it here.
Okay. So yeah, like I was saying before, in my earlier days, I used to pick up books mainly because the book covers attracted me first. If the book cover looked cool, I was picking up that book to look at it. So anyhow, back to my career in art though, but the people that I follow quite a bit, one of my mentors and people I admired throughout my career in art were people like Pablo Picasso. Um, what I admired about Picasso was that in a world where you're taught perfect life is perfect, right? You know, the line's got to be perfect. Your house has got to be perfect. You're going to paint a picture, it's got to be perfect, you know? And then along comes this guy, Pablo Picasso, and he's got women looking like, you know, their faces all twisted. You got a green part of the faces. You know, the right side is green, the left side is yellow. Eyeballs up here, eyeballs down here in the chin. You know, I said, man, I love that. You know, it's fun. It breaks up the mold of perfection. There's beauty in that. To me, there's beauty in that. Just irregularity, abnormality in art. You know, it breaks up the mold of what people think has to be perfect. And in my artwork, my fine art, I kind of go in that direction. Irregularities. I mean, anyone can paint I think you get an artist who can paint a portrait and all that. Well, why not just take a photo? You know, to me, that's my philosophy. So for me, it was always, you know, I want to do something that's different, that's crazy, that's kind of a little bit wild, whatever. And so that's what I do. Unlike in my logo work, where shit has to be perfect, the lines got to match each other and stuff like that, and it keeps you constrained and tight, you know, and the normal people see, that's not looking right, and so you know, it kind of fights the fine art side of me, kind of fights with my business side. So that's kind of like that's me, you know.
Cool. And I like the message in that, you know, about it's true. It's true. This world. I mean, just look at all the filters you can have on your phone now to make you look like you're, you know, 25 years younger, or you got no wrinkles, or you can pick your hair. And hell, people don't even want to be themselves anymore, so they create themselves an avatar. You know, that's, don't get me started on. I mean, they're cute, they're fun, yeah, you're used right, but you know, people don't even want to be themselves anymore, so they create an avatar that is in the likeness of who they are. So so we're maybe another 10 15 minutes if you guys are still good. Now we're going to go a little bit quicker through these books, so I'm going to throw another one out there. Here we go, because this books are leadership on pages. All right, Sly.
Yeah, so that kind of leads to the present, right? And so it was a little later, probably about 5 or 4 years ago, I guess I got that one, where I was still not practicing as much of being in the present and focused on work. And I got to a point where I didn't know where I was headed anymore. I just felt like, you know, why am I working? Like, you know, when I remember when I first started, why I started all this, and it was, you know, to have a better life and whatnot. So, but I got to a point in my life where you keep adding goals, but for what reasons? Like, are they your own reasons? And so, but you go to these seminars and they tell you, no, it's because you need to achieve more. You need to go higher. You need to go faster. You need to be better. And so, at one point, I felt again I was losing myself, and I was just worked all the time, and kind of started realizing some certain things. And so somebody again recommended that book, and it was kind of an enlightenment, and it was at the very beginning of where I am today, where, you know, I believed if I left my work, when I came back, people wouldn't hire me no more, because, you know, they would find somebody new to do exactly what I did. And so there's that fear, right? So the overworked and overwhelmed, I actually became overwhelmed with my life. You know, and to be honest, I have, you know, what I believe in my own eyes to have the perfect life. I've got a wife who loves me. I've got wonderful kids, a great career, friends, you know, family, everything that one, I would imagine, wants to be surrounded by. So, and I kept saying, why am I feeling this way? and it's I had no more purpose, no more direction. It was, because I was always chasing the next best thing, and so when I focused coming back to what is it that I truly wanted, then I started realizing, and that's where the book kind of helped me, was to use. I think you sit down, you do an exercise to block out all the noise, and then figure out what is it that you want and internally. And so now, having somewhat figured that out, I'm on a better path, and so the path is no longer kind of almost like Marco mentioned too, about trying to please everybody, try to have everybody's friend. It's really boils down to, what, no, this is what I need to be happy, and so and it's okay. That is okay. So that book helped me to start to realize that, and it's always a work in progress. Always going back, rereading, and reapplying. So because the old ways tend to want to take over.
Yeah, amen.
And so that that's what that book did for me.
No, it's exactly what the show is looking to try and leave with its viewers, right? Anybody who's watching, is books are forms of leading ourselves. It's an opportunity to be alone with ourselves and our thoughts. Like you said, quiet that noise. Sometimes I'm like a snow globe bouncing down the stairs. That's that overwhelming piece you spoke to, right? I'm a guy who gets overwhelmed quite a bit because it feels like I don't have enough time, or, I need to be doing this rather than that, and picking up too many things, whatever, and the things that you touched on resonate with me. And those books are like, leading you down a new path. It's almost like a set of breadcrumbs for me, the way I picture it, right? It's like a set of breadcrumbs. And sometimes, like you said, oh man, those old ways, they rear their ugly head and you get derailed, and there you are, wheels off the car in the cornfield, deep in the cornfield. And then you're like, oh, here I am again. This is fucking familiar. But there's that book. I'm going to go review it again, chapters 3 and 6. So this next book, thanks for that, Sly. That was great. All right, I know this is the one I also consume too as well, Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah. Start with why. I love this book. I first got introduced to Simon Sinek by watching his TED Talk about leadership and basically, I fell in love with it, and I believe it became number one on TED Talk for a while, and then followed this guy. The book itself, Start With Why. It is definitely a leadership type of book, and I guess what really spoke to me about it was the simple matter of fact that it was almost like it's like people buy into what it is that you're doing, for the reasons of why you're doing it, right? So if you can tap into that why of, okay, why am I working out? Like for me, like I work out like crazy, and I help people do that on the side, right? That type of thing, out on the side of my IT business, IT career. So it's like, why do I work out as much as I do, right? What is it like? Why am I doing this? So it's like you got to tap into your own why, right? And if you want to help influence people, you got to share it, right? Because if you don't share it, then people will just look at you and say, well, Roger's an artist. Okay, so what? You know what I mean? That type of thing. But it's like, if you put it out there in regards to, well, I do it because it actually feeds my soul in a specific way. It's an outlet for me to basically de-stress, or it's an outlet for me to paint the way that I see the world, in a better way, in a better version. You know what I mean? I'm just sort of putting my mindset in and trying to put my mindset into an artist type of frame. But the book is really, really good, man. It's about understanding your why. It's about, and then at one point, if you want to influence people based on that, right? Then it's sharing it. It's about sharing it, right? And to start with why. And there was some examples in there, like that he talks about Apple, right? The Apple company, Apple Inc., right? And the whole what was it? What was their marketing? It was Mac versus PC that he did for a very, very long time, right? Yeah. And they spoke to that, right? And they spoke that in regards to saying like, well, Apple shared like, like why? Like a lot of their advertising at that point was about, we believe that. Do you know what I mean? That type of thing. And that was, I guess, according to Simon Sinek, one of the reasons why they became so popular, why people would stand in lines like for hours to get the new, the new phone or whatever it was, right, before opening, because people believed in their why. They believed in Apple's vision. They believed in Apple being like a disruptor to the normal of phone, like whether it's Android or whatever. They believed in that. So that's why they had such a great response. So if you can start with, if you can, I guess you could say, identify your own why you're doing something, and to share that with people, that deep passion, it can actually help you, reach other people and influence other people to accommodate whatever it is you're trying to reach for yourself.
Yep, and thanks for that. So having read the book too, what I like about it for people who are not familiar with Simon Sinek is, here's a guy, normal guy. That's what I love about him. Just some regular dude goes up on a big, pad and draws 3 circles. We know what we do. We know how we do it, but why do we do it? And that resonated with me because I believe in having they say purposeful life, or a life full of purpose. And that's where the why comes in, is being able to define that. And then the other piece you touched on, which I like too, is people believe in what you believe. So if you lead with your why, and that's your story, and people know why, and especially that ties in so critically into leadership. You just don't say, hey, we need to do this and let's get at it. People need to know why.
And sorry to interject there, it's so true. And if people actually know why, right, it actually solidifies the team, right? And it makes them actually, like, if you have a common belief in that why, as to why we need to do this, the team will go out of their way. They'll, like as Simon Sinek says, they'll pour their sweat, their blood, their tears into making that why a reality, right? And I think it's very important to sort of get the team on board, not to say, well, these are your tasks, but to understand this is a deep vision and why behind it, because we want to achieve this as a whole.
100%. Okay, next book. All right. I'm a big fan of this man too as well, for various reasons. So you know who you are.
You know what, I found this this and one of the other books that I sent out to you appealed to me for the exact same reason. Excuse me. I am more a spiritual person than a religious person, and at the same time, I'm also very heavily steeped in science and fact. I don't accept things because they're written in a book, and I got a priest telling me that this is the way that things are. So the thing that fascinated me about this book, The Universe as a Single Atom, was the parallels that the Dalai Lama wanted to create between organized religion and science. How they are converging, very much looking for the exact same answers, but they're achieving those answers in a completely different way, or kind of similar ways, but in you have the scientific method that takes empirical evidence, disseminates the empirical evidence, and arrives at a conclusion. And now that conclusion is appropriate for today. But in 6 months or 6 years or decades, that conclusion might be a little bit different because the empirical evidence has changed. Our methodology has changed. Our point of reference has changed. Our context has changed. And putting that together with religions, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, they all very much have a similar method, in that at the time that those books were written, the empirical evidence and the conclusions that were arrived at were then put down in a story to help the people who followed along to follow a good way of life. As an example, you know, there are people that are like, well, why don't Jewish people eat pork? You know, what is this about cloven hooved beasts? Well, so here's the thing. 2,600, 3,000 years ago, we didn't have refrigerators, believe it or not. We also didn't have iPhones. So if you slaughtered an animal that primarily ate the garbage off the ground, or ate what was from the bottom of the sea, you were getting meat that potentially could have bacteria and parasites in it. So they were showing that if you eat animals that eat filth, and they're not properly taken care of in the process of processing, that you're going to get sick.
Hey,
You're
Marco,
going to get food poisoning. Yeah,
It's going to give you 30 seconds, and then we're going to look at
for sure.
wrapping up here.
You betcha. So I mean, the beauty about that book is that it ties in both the religious learnings and the scientific learnings, and says, hey, listen, you know what? Both scientists and religious leaders need to get their heads together, and show leadership from both sides, because you're both coming up to the same conclusions. That's it.
No, beautifully packaged. Thank you for that. Yeah, Dalai Lama is anyways provided a lot of wisdom, and is definitely a great leader out there. So because I got a last question for all of you in a minute, that's why I wanted to get to it. It's kind of, I didn't prepare you for this question, because why I did that on purpose. But one quick final book you should, if you haven't read this man's story, I highly recommend that you do, because everything we talked about here today on this show, this man embodies it. You want to talk about blunders, you want to talk about life being sideways and making bad choices and bad decisions, but completely owning it all, and truly arriving at the basically the accelerator not giving a fuck station. Robert definitely is that man. So the last question I have for you guys ties back to accountability. You get about a minute and a half each, and then we'll wrap up the show. Is I want to hear what following through means to each and every one of you. Following through. I'm not going to give you more than that. So, Roger, what does following through mean to you?
Following through, I think it is critical. I don't think, sometimes I will confess, I am not great at it. But I do think it's critical. I think it's important. I think it's a great quality of someone that is truly, truly successful. And that is something I still work on. Bottom line. That's my bit.
Perfect. Thank you, Roger. Okay, Marco, following through.
If you say you're going to do it, do it. Period. Full stop. Don't dishonestly commit to anything. You know, if somebody asks you, can you do this? There is the fear, and I mean, Sylvain touched on this earlier. There's the fear of they'll just find somebody else to do it if you say, I don't know. I don't know if I can get that done right. Be honest about it, because the follow through is what's going to carry you on to the next bit, and it's an ethics thing at that point as well. You know, we're talking about leadership and accountability. There's ethics involved in both of those.
Spot on. That awesome. Thanks, Marco. O'Brien, following through, my friend.
Okay, following through, yeah, it's I think basically Marco, touched on that too, in regards to, if you say you're going to do something, do it. But also on a personal level, if you're going to say you're going to do something and you don't follow through on it, that will, depending on your personality type, it will eat at you, right? It will eat at you, and it will keep you in a more of analysis paralysis. So I would say, if you're the type of person, you'd like to get things done, you're trying to accomplish something, if you say you're going to do something, do it. You will have that satisfaction little chemical that gets released in your brain, and it will give you a self of confidence to continue to move forward to the next thing. So definitely follow through, both in business and in your personal life.
Awesome. Well said. Sly.
Yeah, empty promises. For me, it's whether you promise to do something yourself, for yourself, or for someone else. And O'Brien just touched on it, right? If you don't follow through, it's going to eat you up from the inside out, and then eventually it's going to come back to get you. So for me, that's what it is if you make a promise, if you say you're going to do something, do it and get it out, and live with that.
Awesome. And I'll compliment each of your messages there on following through. For me, it's everything in the relationships that I look to have and to keep, right? We talked about, your personal brand and what the word on the street is about, Steph Saint Laurent or such and such, and especially in teams is, we talked about empty promises or saying something and not following through, right? Is the reliability for me. That's the word. Are you reliable? And how I always equate it is, if I want people to collaborate with me and work with me, I got to be a great leader. I got to be accountable. I got to walk the talk, and I got to follow through, because otherwise, who in God's name is ever going to want to work with me? Because it's slippery slope, and pretty quick, people are like, hey, nobody's talking to me anymore. When people are talking to you and reaching out and want to engage with you and everything, that's your measuring stick, fellas. That's where hey, you're in a good spot and people want to work with you. And that for me is a segue of saying thank you for following through and doing the show. I learned a great many things about having 5 people on at once. So cutting my teeth on this format for the first time. So for the viewing audience, right, work in progress all the time here at On the Cusp. And a massive thanks for sharing some of your personal, books and ideas and the things that have formed your lives, and being able to share that honestly and openly with me and whoever's watching. Again, for me, it's a blessing to have time with you guys in this way. And it's also a gift that I don't squander, because I learned something from each and every one of you. And ultimately, that's what I live for. I have a thirst for hearing from great people. So thanks very much, guys. And have yourself a great rest of your day. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Glad to be here. Thanks, Steph. Everybody be good.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It was nice virtually meeting all of you.
Right back at you, buddy. Right back.